Hi, Jody.
Hi.
I know that you have an interest in the area of the adult orphan, and that's something that we don't often talk about. But I'd be interested in asking you some questions today about the adult orphan so that we have a better understanding and maybe some ideas about what might be supportive to people who have lost both parents. As baby boomers, many of us are experiencing the death of a parent, and not infrequently the death of both parents, and sometimes within a relatively short amount of time. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about the significance in the loss of both parents.
Right. Well, it's true. You know, we all go through life and we have this expectation. We know we're going to lose our parents at some point. And we might lose one parent, and we have our surviving parent to lean on. Maybe we're taking care of them, supporting them, and they're there for us. But when we've lost our second parent, suddenly there isn't that buffer anymore. And we've lost our past, we've lost our stories, we've lost our history, and we no longer have that person to go to for our questions and to learn more about ourselves even. And oftentimes you'll find that the person who's lost their second parent will start grieving the death of their first parent as well. So it gets a little more complicated, I think, after we've lost both of our parents. And I often hear how they feel like an orphan. I feel like I'm orphaned. Who do I belong to now? Where do I go? Whose child am I?
So I hear you talking about the connection to the past and the history, our history.
Right.
Our parents know things about us from our birth.
Absolutely.
So that feeling of that being an orphan and not having used the term buffer with the other parent who you still have. And the issue about caregiving. So are you saying that sometimes an adult orphan may have been caring for a second parent after the death of their first parent, and they haven't had an opportunity to grieve their first parent, so they're grieving both at the same time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Jody, I wanted to ask you about secondary losses. Could you share some things about that in relationship to losing both parents?
Sure. You know, when we experience a loss, we think that's our biggest piece of our grief. But there are also other things that we lose. When we lose both of our parents, as I said prior, we lose our stories, we lose our history, we lose our unconditional love that we had from these people who've known us since before we were born. We lose our teacher, maybe our financial advisor. When we buy our first home, who is there to guide us? When we have our first child, who is there to help us be a better mother or a better father? And we learn and we take those gifts into our life as an example of how our parents taught us. But we don't have anybody to go back to and say, hey, I've got this going on. How would you handle this situation? So we lose a lot of the roles that they played in our life, and we kind of start on our own and keep moving forward. And sometimes people feel like they're floundering because they don't have that. You know, I learned a lot from my father about woodworking and fixing things, you know, and I miss that. When I have things go wrong, I wish he was there to show me how to fix something, you know.
So that reference point, you know, the person that understood how to do something well, that you don't have to go back to any longer.
Right.
So, and I think the other thing that you said that's so interesting is that we don't necessarily think about all the roles that our parents play in our lives. And when we lose them, that's when those secondary losses, the roles that they had in our lives, are not there any longer. Jody, I wanted to ask you about family dynamics. Our family dynamics can be very much impacted by a loss, and we're talking about a loss of two very significant people. So could you share some of your observations in family dynamics when both parents have died? Right.
Our parents are the ones we always turn to for leadership and guidance. And after our parents are gone, that role now falls on to the children in the family. Oftentimes we see it, our grandparents, you know, have us over for meals and for holidays, and then when our grandparents are gone, our parents start doing it. Well, now when our parents are gone, it's up to us. And we can fall into these roles naturally, or people can be appointed to those roles, not by choice, but because other family members aren't sure how to do things. You know, we all have different personalities and different things that we're good at. So the one person might be the one who handles all the finances and there might be somebody else who takes care of planning the holiday get-togethers and making sure families stay together. There might be some fighting in families and disagreements over what the parents have left to the children. There's families who might split because of these differences in what they see, and maybe the parents were that glue that kept that family together as a whole, and now when the parents are gone, the children kind of go their separate directions. But I've also seen situations where there was some discord in the family, where children were kind of maybe shown favoritism, and after the parents are gone, they get to know each other. You know, maybe there was a wedge driven between them because of how they were treated, but they've come back together and they formed a bond again, and they're recreating a family. So it definitely does change a lot for those who are left behind.
So I hear you talking about who is going to assume some of the roles that parents had. Sometimes it happens by default. Nobody's picking that up, so someone kind of takes that role because they're expected to. But it is very different in that different people have to take on those roles. And it was interesting that you talked about how there might be some discord among family members, and there's always the possibility that they might actually come together, and so some positives can emerge from that death of both parents, and that can maybe even improve or strengthen some of the family dynamics among the siblings.
Absolutely.